Hi everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to another edition of Makers with Heart. This month, the Makers with Heart are featuring specialty papers. Be sure to check out the playlist at the end of this video to see all of the cool things the other Makers with Heart have done with specialty papers as well. And I've chosen blackore. This is a beautiful heavyweight cardstock that's sparkly and shimmery and kind of pearlescent, and just check that out. It's beautiful and it's a lot of fun to work with. You can do all kinds of things to it. So I'm going to show you how to make 3 different cards with 3 different techniques. Okay, so let's get started. The first card, I'm going to use the stamp set called the Embroideredcardfront, along with some of the mix-in papers from the January-February catalog. And I'm going to cut my base at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I'm going to cut a piece of this blackore at 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate the black magic technique. So I've cut this blackore paper at 6 inches, but eventually I'm going to cut it down to 5 1/4 inches tall. All right, so I've loaded my stamp into my MISTI and I'm going to use white pigment ink. Okay, so I'm going to ink this up and I'm going to stamp it twice just to make sure that I get a nice intense coating of ink. Okay, so we'll stamp that down and I'm using my Chucky tool to make sure I get even pressure, and we'll get that laid down and then I'll ink it up again. That's the first time, and then we'll do it one more time. This technique works best with solid stamps rather than outline stamps, and you'll see why in just a minute. So go through your stash, look at your stamps and see any that have solid images, and they'll work for this technique. Okay, so now we have our stamped image, and then we'll get the MISTI out of the way. And then I'm going to hit it with my heat tool to make sure this pigment ink is set. You could set it aside and let it dry. It does take some time to dry. And if it's not set, it will smear. So make sure it's dry. Okay. So now I'm going to bring in some Prismacolor colored pencils. Make sure that you choose colored pencils that have a lot of wax content and pigment content to them. So these are a nice quality colored pencil, and also have your sharpener handy because you'll want to sharpen often and have a nice clean, freshly sharpened tip to work with. Okay, so then you just color over these pigmented areas with whatever color you choose. It's best to go with nice, bright, almost neon colors that'll really shine with this technique. Okay, so I think you get the idea. I'm just coloring over all the white images. And I'll finish up this panel. I'll skip ahead and do the rest off screen, okay? So that's how that section looks. And now I have everything done. Look at how brilliant and bright those colors look. All right, so now I'm going to trim everything down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I'm just trimming along the edges of the design here. Okay. All right, and then my base will be that mix in. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in my big shot and some nesting circles. So I'm going to cut the center of this image out. So I'm using one size circle to cut that out. And then I've got some craft foam, and I've cut that down to match the same size as my panel. And then I'm going to use the next circle size larger to cut a circle in this craft foam. So we'll run that through. cut that circle out. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to bring in some ballerina cardstock and deciding if I want to use the dark side or the light side. And I think I like the light side. So I'm just going to cut this panel down so it matches the same size as the black panel. And I'm going to stamp Thinking of You. And this is part of that stamp set with the embroidered card front. And I just marked where the O should go just so I know where to stamp. So I put a little tick mark there. And then I'll stamp Thinking of You. And I'm using black ink. And then I'm going to stamp a couple of little hearts as well in here. Just deciding where they should go. And we'll get those little hearts put down too. Okay. All right. So now we can start assembling our card. So I have a basic A2 card base. So I'll get my base panel tacked down with some Tombow tape runner. And then I'll get that stamped ballerina piece down. I'm just centering everything so it has a nice even border around the edges. Then I'm going to put down that piece of craft foam. So I'm using a piece of transparency film, and you can get this at any office supply store. So I'm going to trim this down so it matches my card front size. And then I'm going to tack down this craft foam using some of the white Tombow glue. And this is going to go to the card front. So we'll get that down. And then I'm going to use tape runner on top of this craft foam because the transparency film adheres to that better. So I've got this covered. Cover the entire panel with your tape runner, okay? And then for my little shaker bits, I'm going to use the mulberry loose gems. Just put a pinch or two in there, and then I'm going to use some wild berry sequins as well. Sprinkle a little bit in there and mix them in with the loose gems, and then I'm going to put my transparency film over that. And just make sure it's completely adhered around that circle so you don't have any gems scooching out. And then I'm going to put my blackore piece down with tape runner as well. And I'm using a lot of tape runner. Just get that covered all the way up so it adheres completely to that transparency film. And then you have a shaker card. There you go. Super cute. So I'll have some close-up shots in a second. Love how that turned out. That colored pencil just pops. Bright colors. So pretty. Okay, now let's make another card. So this is my favorite technique for using the blackore. And I like to cut letters and words out of it. So I'm going to use the Love You Then Cut along with the oval frame. And then I have some wild berry glitter paper and some papers from the Smitten collection and some more ballerina, okay? So I'm going to start by bringing my Big Shot in, and I'm going to cut this blackore paper using the Love You Thin Cut. So run that through. paper cuts beautifully with our thin cuts. And then I'm going to bring the oval frame in and cut out the wild berry glitter paper to make my frame. And then I'm going to cut another frame using the smitten paper, and I'm going to do the inlay technique. So instead of using the frame, I'm going to keep that oval that's in the center. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to bring in off screen. I've cut 2 more layers of this Love You thin cut using black cardstock, and I'm going to stack them for some added dimension. Okay, so I've got 2 layers here, and then I'm going to add the third, which is the black ore, on top. All right, so I'm just going to use Tombow aqua glue and layer them on top. So I have 3 stacked up. So then I'll just set a block on top so they can set up. Okay, now we can start assembling our card. I'm going to bring in some of this ballerina cardstock, and I'm going to use the dark side of ballerina and cut a piece at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This is going to be a top fold landscape A2 card. So I have my card base. I'm going to put down that piece of ballerina using Tombow tape runner. And then we'll add our glitter frame. So I'm just going to put that down using some Tombow aqua. Just dot a thin line around and place that down. And then I'll add the smitten paper in the center. Use some tape runner in there and just inlay it into that oval frame. Okay, and then we can start adding our love you sentiment right in the middle. Okay, so get those laid down, and then I'll glue them down using some Tombow. Okay, skip ahead, and we have those placed. And then it needs some more sparkle, right? So I'm going to bring some more of these wild berry sequins in and sprinkle a whole bunch of those around the card. And here's my finished card. Super cute. I love the way that blackore just sparkles and shines. Okay, so now let's make another card. This is the third technique, and I'm going to use the Botanicals Embossing Folder, the Just Because thin cuts, and the Layered Flowers thin cuts. All right, so I'm going to cut my blackore at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And this blackore just embosses beautifully. So I'm going to place it in my embossing folder. And this embossing folder can be found in the core catalog. And then we'll run that through the Big Shot. Okay, and check this out. Look at how beautiful that embossing is. It's just striking. I love it. Okay. All right, so off camera, I have cut out the Just Because using 2 layers of white cardstock and 1 layer of gold foil paper. Okay, and then I've glued them all together. I've stacked them. And then I've cut out a whole bunch of these layered flowers off camera. And we can start assembling our cards. So I'm going to put down this embossed piece using some Tombow white glue. And we'll place that on our card front. And then I'll put a couple of blocks on it so it can set up. And then I'm going to assemble my flowers. Okay, so you just layer them together. And I'm using some of this art glitter glue just because it has this fine tip, so I can get in all those nooks and crannies. Teensy tiny dots of glue. So I'll get all my flowers layered together and glued up, and then we can start assembling the card. It's a little bit of a puzzle figuring out how they fit together. I'll do the rest off camera. All right. So now I'm just going to lay everything on my card front just to see how it looks and how it fits. I'll get everything placed down. And I'll cluster my flowers at the bottom. I think I like how that's coming together. Make sure, just kind of try a couple things until I like the way it looks. Yep. Okay, and then I'm just going to add everything with some Tombow. And then, of course, we can always add some extra bling. So I'm going to add some more of these wild berry sequins. So I'll put a couple in the center of the flowers, and then I'll scatter a bunch around the card. So pretty. All right, and there's my finished card. Have some close-up shots. So pretty. So I'll make a list of all the supplies that I use with links in the description below, and be sure to click on the playlist at the end of this video to check out all of the other cool things the Makers with Hearts have done with specialty papers this month. I appreciate you watching my video today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and then you'll be able to find all of my videos. And thanks for watching.